The morning light filtered softly through the curtains, spilling a warm golden hue across our small kitchen. I was pouring milk into my son Liam's cereal bowl, half asleep, half dreaming about bills I needed to pay and groceries I'd have to stretch through the week. Life had been manageable, but never easy. My husband, Daniel, worked long hours at his firm, always coming home tired and stressed, muttering about clients and deadlines. I stayed home with Liam, working part-time online, clipping coupons, and doing what I could to keep things afloat. That morning the radio hummed softly in the background, and the local host was announcing the lottery results from the previous night. I wasn't even paying attention at first. I had bought that ticket on a whim, a small indulgence, something to daydream about when washing dishes or folding laundry. But as the numbers rolled out one by one, something inside me jolted. Hold on, I whispered, grabbing my purse and pulling out the crumpled ticket. Liam looked up from his cereal, spoon halfway to his mouth. "Mom, what's wrong?" I didn't answer. My eyes were glued to the ticket, my heart pounding in my chest, the numbers. I mumbled, "Oh my God, the numbers." I read them again, slowly this time, comparing each one to the announcer's voice coming through the speakers. The first matched, then the second, my throat tightened, the third one matched too. By the time I reached the last number, my hands were shaking so violently that the ticket nearly slipped from my fingers. I had to sit down. "Liam," I whispered, voice trembling, "we just won. We actually won." He frowned in confusion. "Won what, Mommy?" I laughed, half hysterical, half in awe. $50 million, sweetheart. 50 million. For a moment the words felt foreign, almost ridiculous. I'd spent so many years worrying about overdue rent, scraping change from the couch cushions and wishing for something, anything to change, and now, in an instant, everything had. I jumped from my chair, spinning around the kitchen like a mad woman. Liam giggled and clapped, not really understanding, but happy because I was happy. I hugged him tight, tears spilling from my eyes. "You're going to have everything you ever dreamed of," I whispered into his hair. For a few minutes I just stood there, ticket pressed against my chest, trying to process it. The practical part of my brain told me to breathe, to double check, to make sure I wasn't imagining things. I grabbed my phone, opened the lottery website, and typed in the numbers again. The screen blinked, and then the confirmation appeared. Winner, $50, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. My knees gave out, and I sank to the floor, laughing and crying all at once. Liam sat beside me, wrapping his little arms around my shoulders. "Mommy, are we rich now?" I nodded through my tears. "Yes, baby, we are." The first person I wanted to tell was Daniel. He'd been so tired lately, so weighed down. We'd argued last night about money. Again, he'd said something about not being able to carry the whole family forever. I understood, but it had stung. Maybe now, finally, he'd see we were going to be okay. More than okay. I grabbed my car keys, heart racing. "Come on, Liam. Let's go surprise Daddy." He whooped and ran to grab his shoes. I took a deep breath, glancing at myself in the mirror near the door. My hair was messy, my eyes wide with excitement, but I didn't care. I imagined bursting into Daniel's office, waving the ticket in the air, telling him that all his hard work and our struggles were finally over. Maybe we'd laugh. Maybe he'd lift me into his arms like he used to when we were young. The drive to his office felt like a dream. Every red light felt like an eternity. I kept the ticket on the dashboard, glancing at it every few seconds just to make sure it was real. Liam sat in the back, humming and talking about all the toys he wanted. A big train set, a robot dog, and maybe a trampoline, and I promised him we'd make every wish come true. As we pulled into the parking lot of Daniel's firm, I noticed his car was already there. Good, he hadn't gone out for meetings yet. I parked, unbuckled Liam, and took his small hand in mine. "Ready to surprise Daddy." "Yeah," he shouted, giggling. We hurried inside, the receptionist greeting us with a surprised smile. "Oh, hi, Mrs. Carter. You're here to see Daniel. Yes, I said, grinning. It's important. Can we go up? She nodded and buzzed us through. My pulse quickened with every step we took toward his office. My mind was a whirlwind of plans. New house, vacations, college fund for Liam, maybe finally opening the bakery I'd always dreamed about. When we reached the door, I paused. Daniel's office door was slightly ajar. I could hear muffled voices, his and a woman's. A laugh followed, high pitched, soft, and far too intimate. For a moment I froze, my smile faltered. Maybe it was just a colleague, I told myself. He worked closely with clients all the time. But then came another sound, a low murmur, a whisper, and something that made my stomach twist. I leaned closer, gently pushing the door a little. It opened just enough for me to see through the narrow gap. My breath hitched. Daniel was standing by his desk, shirt unbuttoned, tie hanging loose. A woman, young, pretty, with long auburn hair, was pressed against him, her hands gripping his shoulders. Their lips were inches apart. My body went cold. For a moment I couldn't move. My mind couldn't process what my eyes were seeing. The man I had shared every broken dream with, the man I had come to surprise with the best news of our lives, was standing there with someone else, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years. Liam tugged on my sleeve. Mommy, why are we stopping? I turned quickly, kneeling to his level, forcing a smile even as my chest felt like it was caving in. SHH, sweetheart. I whispered, voice trembling. Daddy's busy right now. I stood there for another heartbeat, frozen between heartbreak and fury. My hand tightened around the winning ticket until the edges crumpled. All that joy, all that hope, it had twisted into something sharp and painful. I didn't want to make a scene, not in front of Liam, not here, but I knew I couldn't unsee what I'd just seen. The laughter, the way Daniel touched her, the ease in his posture, all the things he hadn't given me in months. Silently, I turned away. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear my own footsteps. Liam asked me a few questions on the way back to the car, but I barely registered them. I just buckled him in, sat behind the wheel, and stared at the steering wheel for what felt like an eternity. How cruel fate could be! The moment I finally had everything, I realized I might have lost the one thing that was supposed to matter most. I started the engine and drove, not even sure where I was going. The ticket lay on the passenger seat, a small, crumpled piece of paper that could change everything. But I wasn't sure anymore if I wanted to share that change with Daniel. As we drove past the city, Liam fell asleep in the back seat, clutching his toy car. I glanced at him in the mirror, tears welling up again. I had to think. About him, about me, about what came next. Because one thing was clear, our lives were about to change forever, just not in the way I had imagined that morning. I don't remember much of that drive home, only that I kept seeing the same image in my mind. Daniel with that woman, his hands on her waist, his eyes soft in a way I hadn't seen in years. The betrayal stung sharper than I expected. I'd always known we were drifting apart, but I thought it was because of stress, not someone else. I thought that once money stopped being a problem, we'd find our way back. When I parked the car in front of our house, Liam was still sleeping in the back seat. I sat there quietly for a long while, gripping the steering wheel so hard that my knuckles turned white. Then I looked at the ticket on the passenger seat, creased, fragile but real, $50 million. Enough to start a new life from scratch if I wanted, enough to never have to depend on Daniel again. That thought terrified me, and liberated me all at once. When I finally went inside, I laid Liam in his bed, brushed a strand of hair from his forehead, and stood there watching him breathe. My innocent little boy, who had no idea that his world had just cracked in two. I wanted to protect him from it all, from the lies, the fights, the truth I had yet to face. I sat at the kitchen table, the ticket lying in front of me. My phone buzzed. It was Daniel. I didn't pick up. A few seconds later, a text came through. Daniel, hey, are you okay? You came by my office. I stared at the message, a bitter laugh escaping my throat. He probably thought I hadn't seen anything. He probably assumed his little secret was still safe. I put the phone face down on the table and closed my eyes. A storm of emotions swirled in me: anger, sadness, confusion, disbelief. But underneath it all, a strange calm began to settle. I wasn't powerless anymore. For the first time in years, I held the upper hand. The next morning, Daniel came home earlier than usual. I heard his car pull up, his footsteps on the porch. I stayed seated at the table, the winning ticket hidden under a book. When he walked in, his expression was hesitant, almost guilty. "Hey," he said softly, forcing a smile. "The receptionist said you stopped by yesterday. I tried calling." I looked up at him. "Yes, I did." He fidgeted, his eyes darting away. "Why didn't you come in?" I took a slow breath. "You seemed busy." His face paled for a split second, but he quickly composed himself. "Busy? Oh, with the client. Yeah, that was—" "Don't," I interrupted. "Don't lie to me, Daniel." The room fell silent. The air between us was thick, suffocating. He looked at me for a long moment, his jaw tight. Then he sighed. "It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think," I said quietly. For the first time, I saw fear flicker across his face. "How long?" I asked. He hesitated. "A few months. It was a mistake, I swear. It didn't mean anything." I laughed bitterly. "It never does it?" He took a step closer. "I've been stressed, Emily. Work's been insane, and I made a stupid choice. But you have to know I love you. You and Liam are everything to me." "Love," I repeated, shaking my head. "You don't cheat on the people you love, Daniel." He opened his mouth to say something, but I stood up before he could. "You know what's funny? Yesterday was supposed to be the happiest day of our lives. I went there to tell you that everything was about to change, that we wouldn't have to struggle anymore." He frowned. "What are you talking about?" I reached under the book and pulled out the ticket. His eyes widened as I placed it gently on the table between us. "I won," I said quietly, $50 million. For a moment, the only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator. Daniel blinked as if trying to process the words. Then his gaze darted from the ticket to my face. "Wait, you're serious?" "Yes." His lips parted in disbelief. "Oh my God, Emily, this is unbelievable." He laughed, running a hand through his hair. "You're kidding, right? 50 million. I wish I were." He reached out to grab my hands, but I stepped back. His smile faltered. "Emily, come on. This changes everything," he said eagerly. "We can finally move, get a new house, travel. Liam can go to the best schools." I cut him off with a cold look. "You mean I can, because you won't be part of this?" The color drained from his face. "What?" "I saw enough yesterday to know what kind of man you've become. You made your choice, Daniel. I'm making mine." He stared at me, stunned. "You're not serious." "I am. You can't just take the money and leave." He shouted suddenly, "That's our ticket." I laughed softly. "No, Daniel, I bought it, with my money, my name's on it." He ran his hands over his face, pacing back and forth. "Emily, think about Liam. You can't do this to him." "I am thinking about Liam," I said firmly. "That's exactly why I'm doing this." He looked at me like a man cornered, anger and desperation warring in his eyes. "You can't just throw everything away because of one mistake." "One mistake," I whispered. "You didn't just betray me, Daniel. You betrayed our family." He exhaled sharply, as if realizing he'd lost the argument. "You won't survive without me," he muttered. "You think you can handle all that money alone. People will use you. You'll ruin everything." I met his eyes steadily. "Maybe, but at least I'll be ruined on my own terms." He stared at me for a long moment, then grabbed his coat and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I stood there, heart pounding, tears burning my eyes. But I didn't cry, not this time. Over the next few days, I made quiet plans. I met with a lawyer, secured the winnings under my name, and started looking for a new place to live. Something peaceful, fresh. I didn't tell anyone, not even my parents. The world felt different now. Bigger, brighter, but also more dangerous. When the money hit my account, I felt an overwhelming mix of power and sadness. I could do anything now, go anywhere, but I'd lost the person I thought I'd share it with. One evening, as Liam played with his toy cars, he looked up and asked, "Mommy, is Daddy coming home?" My throat tightened. "Not right now, sweetheart. Daddy's busy." He nodded slowly, accepting the answer with the innocence only a child could have. I watched him, realizing that from now on, it was just the two of us, and maybe that was okay. Weeks passed. Daniel tried to contact me several times. Calls, emails, messages. He even showed up at the house once, begging for another chance. I didn't open the door. I had nothing left to say. Instead, I focused on building a new life. I bought a house near the ocean, a quiet, beautiful place where Liam could run free and I could breathe again. I donated a large portion of the money to charities that helped single mothers and struggling families. It felt right, like giving back to the universe that had somehow chosen me for this strange twist of fate. At night, when the waves crashed softly against the shore, I'd sit on the balcony and think about everything that had happened. The betrayal still hurt, but it didn't control me anymore. The money hadn't healed the pain, but it had given me something far more valuable: freedom. One afternoon, months later, I received a letter. It was from Daniel. I almost threw it away, but something made me open it. Inside was a short note. Emily, I don't expect forgiveness. I ruined everything, and I see that now. I hope you and Liam are happy. You deserve it. I'll always love you, even if it's from afar. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel anger when I read his words, just a quiet sadness and acceptance. That evening, Liam ran up to me, his face glowing with excitement. "Mommy, look what I built." He showed me a sandcastle he'd made near the water, decorated with shells and sticks. "It's our new house," he said proudly. I smiled and knelt beside him. "It's perfect, baby." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, I realized that sometimes life tears everything apart just to make space for something better. I had walked through heartbreak, betrayal, and disbelief, but I'd come out stronger, standing on my own. The 50 million hadn't saved my marriage, but it had saved me. And as I watched the waves roll in, Liam's laughter echoing across the beach, I finally understood. Happiness wasn't something you won. It was something you built, one choice at a time.